They call me Jack. The creatures of this mystical land have guided me here. Is this the passage through time that I have quested for?
Yep.
I humbly request your permission to use this great power.
Nope.
What's up guys, Hirohei here. This is a follow-up to the video I just released on Ashi and her potential fate, whether it's good or very, very bad. If you haven't seen that video, I will leave a link in this card, so feel free to click that. Come back to this video after you've watched that one. Or you know what, you can watch this video and then take a look at that one. It doesn't really matter, they're not really in order. This is all leading up to my finale theory video. So this is a video on Jack and whether if he will return to the past or stay in the current, future, present timeline. So I have quite a bit of notes on this one. Usually I like to wing it, so to speak, but this is a very in-depth topic, a lot of discussion. This can be taken a lot of ways, and I'm using a lot of information that Genndy himself has said, so I don't want to get that information wrong, say the wrong thing. So I have notes on this, so if I'm going to give you a heads up, I will probably be looking like this way quite a lot, and that's why I'm looking at my notes over here. So the first thing I want to mention is the Guardian and the Time Portal Jack. If you haven't seen that episode, it is Season 3, Episode 6. And in that episode, Jack finds a creature that takes him to a time portal because it realizes that Jack is a great warrior. Well, Jack approaches that time portal and meets this blue-looking Matrix fellow who is known as the Guardian. The Guardian tells Jack that he won't let him access the time portal unless Jack defeats the Guardian. And then they have an epic fight. Jack lands some really good hits on the Guardian, but in the end, Jack, for lack of a better word, he gets his ass kicked. He really does. The Guardian really doesn't have any injuries. His outfit gets torn up, but he doesn't really sustain a single injury. Meanwhile, Jack is knocked unconscious on the floor, beaten entirely, and the Guardian picks up a giant boulder and is about to smash Jack with that boulder. However, the time portal behind the Guardian shows an image of Jack. That image of Jack is an older aged Jack. He looks like he's in his 50s or 60s, maybe even 70s. And he's got a beard and a crown on his head. This image is known in the Samurai Jack community as King Jack. Makes sense. So, taking away from that image, we can assume that eventually Jack will become a king. However, that may not actually be the case. You may or may not be familiar with the term retconned. Retconned is when a creator or the producers of a show go back and reinstate information that was previously mentioned in a show, usually years ago, just like Samurai Jack right here. 15 years later or so, we have Season 5. There's a potential that King Jack may be retconned. Now, why am I saying that? Well, based on Genndy's interview, one of Genndy's interviews, he's had many obviously, but let me just kind of summarize like some of the things that Genndy said. Now, before I do that, I'm not saying that King Jack is like thrown out entirely. I'm just saying that there is potential that the King Jack prophecy may be retconned. Not that it is going to be retconned, just that it may be. And here's why. Okay, so during Genndy's interview, he said that he didn't have any idea for an ending while the show was still airing. So when they made that episode with the Guardian, Genndy didn't really have an ending for Samurai Jack in mind. It was kind of just something that they thought would probably be cool, and it would make the fans like speculate and theorize on why Jack is wearing a crown, and he's like older, he's aged, so maybe he got back to the past. Back then, we didn't know that Jack wasn't aging. We just found that out as of Season 5. So just keep in mind that they didn't have an ending in mind for the show back then. The next thing he says is that his idea for the ending actually came a couple of years after the show finished airing. So there we go. Maybe the King Jack thing wasn't exactly, you know, meant to be taken so literal. Like I said already, disclaimer, maybe it's going to be accurate, but there is a chance that it really didn't have much merit and it can be retconned. So really, everything's up in the air. It really is. Okay, moving on. So, Jack returning to the past is actually more metaphorical than literal, according to Genndy. So, let me just say that again. Genndy said that Jack returning to the past is more metaphorical than literal. Like, it's more like Jack wanted to return to his old ways than Jack actually like wanted to return to the past. Now, this is not like me saying that. Those are Genndy's words. It's more metaphorical than literal. That's not him saying that like Jack doesn't want to go back to the past, like literally, but it is more metaphorical. So take that with a grain of salt. More metaphorical, you know? Anyways, so the next thing I want to mention. Genndy also said that due to the show's episodic nature, he couldn't really like develop Samurai Jack's character that much because, you know, it was airing 50-something episodes on Cartoon Network. They were episodic, meaning each episode was different. You met different characters. It was like little mini episodes. So because of that, one episode maybe Jack would be kind of like grim, not really say anything. There were a few episodes where Jack had like 0 lines or 1 line, and it was just like mostly action. There were other episodes where he was kind of cheery and like more like youthful. So Samurai Jack's character wasn't that consistent in the earlier seasons 1 through 4 because of the episodic nature and the way it was airing on Cartoon Network. So Genndy then goes on to say that since the season 5 is going to happen 50 years later, he said, let's bring him down. It's 50 years later. There's no way home. Aku won't even face him anymore, and he's lost hope. And what would you do if you're stuck in this eternal hell with the idea that you let all the people down in your past? So that's why we obviously have Jack all depressed. Currently, we're on Season 5, Episode 6, for anyone watching this in the future, looking back on this video. But as of this video being made, the last episode we had was Season 5, Episode 6. So Jack had just, like, met back up with Ashi, stopped the whole, like, seppuku thing, and he's looking like he's ready to get it. He said he's ready to get his sword, and he's looking like he's ready to, like, change his ways again. So keep that in mind. Anyways, Genndy also went on to say that when the show is over, he wants people to take away love for the show, to have a great experience for 10 episodes, and to think, wow, I really love that show, and it's going to stay with me. Key words at the end there. It's going to stay with me. Now, I don't know about you guys, but all you anime fans out there, specifically anime fans, but it can be like a movie or any you know, work of art, like a cinema, whatever. Usually when something really stays with you, a movie, anime, a TV show, whatever, usually that's because the ending is kind of sad, and you're sitting there like, oh my god, like, wow, that was an emotional roller coaster. You know, it's not always the case. Sometimes you have a happy ending, but we'll see. It could be a happy ending for Samurai Jack. It could be a sad ending, but the point is that he really wants people to love the show and to have a great experience for 10 episodes and think, wow, they like I already said it. Wow, it's gonna stay with me. So it's going to be a shocking ending. It's going to be a wonderful, shocking ending. It may not be like super shocking, but it's going to be an intense ending. Whether it's intense for, you know, good reasons, positive reasons, or intense for sad, depressing reasons. It's going to stick with us. And I have no doubt that, again, he's going to make the ending amazing. So going back to the original question, will Jack stay in the present, future timeline, or go back to the past? Well, let's consider what all the merit is of him staying in the present timeline. So going on to my video, once again in the card here, the Ashi video I made, if you haven't seen that, yeah, remember to check that out. Also, I will leave a link to that video in the end card of this one and in the description of this video, so don't stress that too much. You will be able to see that easily. Don't worry. I'll make it very accessible to you guys. I'm so generous with my channel, making a million different ways. Anyways, okay. So, will Jack stay in the present or the future? Or go back to, I'm sorry, will Jack stay in the present, future, or go back to the past? Okay, so in the current timeline, he has Ashi. Yes, Ashi is in the current timeline. If he goes back to the past, maybe Ashi can't go with him for reasons that I covered in that video. And he also has his friends. Let's keep in mind that Jack, I think probably when Jack first fought Aku way back in the day, he was probably around like 20 years old, maybe like 21, 22, early 20s or so. That's just kind of my headcanon on that. Makes sense to me. Early 20s. And he spent 50 years in the future now. That is double the amount of time that he had spent in his timeline. And most of the time that he spent in his timeline was either in his village, you know, when he was a little kid growing up, it was in his village. And then later on in life, it was training. He spent literally his entire, like, years and years just training to fight Aku. He was training to, like, really be able to use the sword. His mother took the sword to a special temple and, like, stayed there with some monks and, like, had the sword hidden there so that when Jack was done training, he would be able to go to that temple and they would give him the sword to fight Aku. So he spent, like, most of his life in the same village and then in the other same village, a different village, but, like, you know, also in a village, just training. So he didn't really probably meet that many friends. Sure, he could have met friends while he was training, but it wasn't really about that, you know? It was about him getting stronger so that he can go to his mom and the monks, get the sword, beat Aku, and free his villagers, free his father, and kill Aku, really. Get rid of Aku. So 50 years now in the future, he has met like many other people. He's made a lot of friends, as we have seen in episode 6, and you already know this if you've watched, you know, seasons 1 through 4. And that was only a fraction of all the people he met. Keep in mind, episodic and 50-something episodes. And not all those episodes were like about the current timeline. Some of them were like the flashbacks, you know, Birth of Evil and stuff like that. But we can strongly say like 40 to 45 episodes was Jack just meeting new people every episode. So he has a lot of friends, a lot of people he probably cares about, a lot of people he's helped. He's basically like worshipped now in this future, the current timeline. And now he's having this love interest with Ashi. So we have this scale kind of thing going on. Like, return to the past and free my family, my villagers, or stay in the present and spend the rest of my life with everyone that I actually like developed a relationship with now. It's a very interesting situation. It really is. And I'd also like to mention now the ancestors. So like, hypothetically, what if Jack's ancestors came to him in the current timeline and said like Jack, but they probably wouldn't use that. They'd probably, heck, maybe that's how we'll find out his real name. Maybe this does happen and they use his real name, because we don't know his real name. Jack was the name given to him by the kids, like the first, right when he got thrown into the future. And they're like, sup, Jack? Yo, Jack. And Jack was supposed to be like slang for like man or dude or something. And then Jack just kind of went with it. And he was like, my name's Jack. Okay. So maybe his ancestors will come and like actually call him by his real name. And then we will all have our minds blown like, oh my God, that's Jack's real name. But the main point I'm getting at is not the name thing. That just kind of came to me just now. It's the fact that we may see his ancestors. And I hate to go back to the Green Warrior whose real name is the Omen. But because the Omen like showed those warriors, those like whatever he called them, I forget the exact like word he used, but those warriors that rose from the grave. And then like Jack, when he was talking to his Blue Jack version, the Blue Jack was mentioning like how his ancestors were disappointed and stuff like that, that his ancestors just want him to join like them again because it's been so long. That could be some, you know, foreshadowing or opening the door to the fact that maybe in the finale, Jack's ancestors will show up in front of him and be like, listen, you know, this is just the way I'm putting it, but they could be like, listen, we understand that you want to stay in this timeline. You have, or maybe not even like want to, you're conflicted, but you have a love interest in Ashi. You have this entire timeline, like, who all worships you. You've made so many friends. We're all long dead now, you know. Aku took over the past and our life sucked. That part they probably might not say, but who knows. But they're going to basically be saying like, we are fine with you staying here. You've earned the right to stay here, Jack. You've accomplished so much in this timeline. You can stay here. We lived our lives, but we want you to have a better life than what we had. Just stay here. Just stay here and enjoy everything that you've accomplished. That seems totally possible to me. And like I said, they opened the doors for that with the Omen, with the warriors that were raised there, with all the talk about his ancestors. The door is open for that kind of finale to happen. And I think it seems kind of, you know, likely, especially, oh man, I don't want to get into a whole finale talk right now though. I want to make a finale video, but you know what? If you've watched this video now for, you know, we're on 13 minutes, I will give you guys a little Easter egg to my ideas on how the finale will work. I'm still going to make that separate video, but if you're dedicated enough to listen to me talk for 13 minutes, I appreciate it. Round of applause to you guys. So here's something that could totally happen in the finale that I'm going to mention in that video, but I'll just mention it now too because you guys are awesome for sticking with me this long. So there was some major foreshadowing about the finale from the Three Blind Archers when Ashi went to them and they said like, if Jack ever needs us, we'll be there for him. Then we saw a lot of other of his friends in that episode. We could totally have an ending where Jack is there with all his friends and then his ancestors come. He's able to return to the past if he wants, but then he's got to make his decision. And this is a trope that is used in many works of fiction, many anime and that sort of thing, where the main character is faced with this reality at the very end, and they have to make that choice. They have to make that choice. One of my favorite anime, Darker Than Black, also had this similar thing going on, and I could totally see this going on in Samurai Jack. So, will he go back to the past, or will he stay in the present timeline? There's so much merit to either one. There really is. I think it's really going to come down to that. But those are my predictions for like some of the finale. I haven't mentioned everything that I think of, but with this video and the Ashi video that I just made before this, you will have a really good idea of like a lot of my thoughts on how the finale will go down. Like I said, I'm still working on that prediction video, and I will get that out like maybe tomorrow. I want to get this stuff out because we only have 2 or 3 weeks left. You know, about 3 weeks, a little less, until this is actually all wrapped up. Pretty crazy. Heck of a show this has been, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Leave me any comments down below on your thoughts on how this is all going to go down. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, you've been listening to this video for 14 and a half minutes, I hope I caught your interest enough that you would consider subscribing. And if you do, I'll catch you around in the next video. Everyone else, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.